My favorite episodes is something that I dealt with also in the book, I Am Not Spock, and again later in a subsequent book that I wrote called I Am Spock. I thought I better clean this up. I talk about a wonderful story by Harlan Ellison called City on the Edge of Forever, which was a love story for the captain and a lady in the 1930s, that we went back to the 1930s, a very beautifully written script. A tragic ending, but a beautifully written script. And A Devil in the Dark, which I thought was a very important episode for us, dealing with the idea that we are afraid of what we don't know, and that if we get to know, maybe the fear goes away. If we learn about the adversary or the potential opponent or the thing that's frightening us, maybe the fear will dissipate. Let This Be Your Last Battleground, I think, was the title of the show, where the characters were split, black on one side and white on the other, and the other person the opposite, black on the opposite side and so forth. And that was the adversarial point, that they were black on different sides. Very interesting episode. For Spock, one of the major character episodes was A Mock Time, where Spock had to go back to his home planet to fulfill a marriage betrothal that had been arranged when he was a child. And we see the Vulcan culture for the first time, other Vulcans for the very first time ever in Star Trek. And we live long and prosper, and this gesture was introduced for the first time, those words in this gesture introduced for the very first time in Star Trek. And this became symbolic of Star Trek and the Vulcans and the Spock character. I get this on the streets wherever I go every day. Somebody gives me the Vulcan salute. Those are some of the episodes that come to mind. I'm a good listener. I've always been a good listener, and I think that was useful in the Spock character, because Spock was Spock was a person who could absorb other people's ideas and intentions. I'm a good minimalist, although I must say that I was trained to be an emotional actor. My training was all about expressing emotion, so I had to inhibit that in the Spock character. When I first started working as Spock, my tendency was to be a little bit too strong and too forthcoming with my emotion, with my reactions. And I had to learn to tamp that down. On the other hand, once I had done that, I had aspects of myself that I could use successfully. I'm delighted that that an audience, again, will get to see these shows. I do have a Twitter account, and I get people tweeting me regularly saying, I've just become interested in Star Trek because my parents or grandparents have introduced me and I'm watching the episodes, and that thrills me to know that people are going back to the originals, the origins, to the roots of Star Trek, and seeing what the origins are all about, which gives them a chance to more greatly appreciate what's being done with Star Trek now. I think that the films that J.J. Abrams is producing and directing of Star Trek are brilliant. But the roots are great. To go back to the roots and know where it all sprang from, I think is exciting. I have been asked so many times if we knew when we were making the show that it would last so long or endure the way it has. I have to admit to a bit of a sense of precognition here. I had a sense when we were making the show. I don't mean that I'm clairvoyant or anything like that, but I did have a sense when we were making the original series that it could last a long time into the future, because the shows were set in the future to begin with, and a lot of the ideas presented in the show were ideas that would endure and still be interesting and valid ideas long into the future. And much of the science that we were presenting as science fiction at the time could conceivably become science fact in the future. All of those, together with the fact that the chemistry in the cast was really very successful, I thought. Wonderful question. I love that question. I had been jobbing in films and television for 15 years when the Spock character came along. And when you're jobbing, particularly in television, when you're a guest on a show, even if you're the guest star of a show, you come in for 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 days of work and you're gone. There's a family that stays. And it's as though you've been allowed to come in and visit in that home for a few days with that family, and then you're done. And if your name is on your dressing room door, it's removed, and there's another name that's put on your dressing room door. It's no longer your dressing room. When you sign on to do a series, as I was for Star Trek, suddenly you become part of this family. There's an amazing difference, an amazing difference. You know that the name on the door is going to be there for weeks, if not months, and maybe even years. You know that you have your parking place on the lot. You know that your brothers and sisters are your fellow actors, that your father figures are the directors, the producers, the studio heads, and so forth. You are a member of the family. It's an entirely different experience. And to say nothing of the fact that it's steady income, and you can support your family and not worry when you're done with this 8 or 9 day job, when will I work again? So it changed my life tremendously in every way, psychologically, financially, job security. It changed my life totally. And ever since Star Trek went on the air in 1966, I have never had to be concerned about where would I find my next job. I've always had job offers waiting for me.